The feeding of the 5,000. Yet another parable we've all heard a million times. There's a lot going on here, a lot of themes in this reading. It's about the abundance of God and his blessings. It's about the power of Christ and his love for us. It's a precursor to Eucharist. And it's also about us and our needs. In this reading, Christ comes face to face with our human needs. And earlier in the gospel, he encounters our human temptations. If you ever go to Africa, you will know all about needs. About halfway through my service, when I was working as a teacher in Burkina Faso, West Africa, I ran a week-long summer school program, something to do in between the school years. And the summer there is the rainy season, so there was a ton of mud everywhere. Well, we had our summer school, and then as a little treat on the last day, we all had an impromptu soccer game. You know, nothing official. We just took all the students, divided them into two teams for those who wanted to play, and we just had a fun little afternoon. And we didn't have a soccer field so much as a soccer rectangle of mud. And no one cared. No one cared at all. They just jumped in and just played barefoot soccer in the mud. And one of the students, she must have been like a 9-year-old girl. She came to school that day in a flowing, stark white dress. And she played along with everyone else, and she did not think twice about the mud stains. I was telling that story to a friend when I was back in the States, and I was saying, yeah, just in the midst of everything, it was poverty, but it was kind of like the good sort of poverty. And my friend just stopped me there. I didn't even get to finish my sentence. She said, "No, Justin, you're wrong. There's no such thing as good poverty." And it struck me back, it has a certain logic to it. Well, we talked a little more, and it turned out that we were both using the word poverty in different ways. When my friend said poverty, she means when your basic needs are not met. Poverty is not being able to eat. Poverty is dirty water. Poverty is a roof that doesn't keep out the rain. My idea of poverty was a more general concept. Poverty is not having money when you need to buy medicine when you get sick. Poverty is having low odds of leaving your village for better work. My definition of poverty allowed for at least the occasional good day. My friend's definition was just a little too black and white for that. And I think Jesus would have seen both of our points. They say that we have two sorts of needs, primary, secondary needs, and we respond to each one differently. Primary needs, clear enough: food, shelter, water. In this day and age, I might be inclined to include basic health care and companionship. That's not official. Feel free to debate that all day long. Primary needs must be met. They say that every civilization is 3 meals away from revolution. When someone has not eaten for a certain period of time, it means that something has gone terribly, terribly wrong. We need to meet our basic needs. Secondary needs, on the other hand, are things like attention, power, money, self-esteem, and freedom. These are needs, but they're different because we need to be careful. If we're not, we could find ourselves addicted to the way we meet those needs. For instance, power. Everybody needs a little bit of power. Power over yourself, power over your environment. No one wants to be completely powerless. And we shouldn't want other people to be completely powerless. But as we all know, power is addicting. Some people get a taste for it and are never satisfied again. It's the same thing with money. Everybody needs some money. But think of the Enron-style executives, the people that somehow weren't happy with $1 billion. It's addiction, pure and simple. And we're called to maintain a balance in our lives. And that balance sometimes means fighting for the things that we need and the things other people need. But it also means showing restraint against those things that we don't need or the things that we want for the wrong reasons. Okay, let's finally get back to the gospel. In the feeding of the 5,000, Jesus makes food. And that's the short version of the story. He makes food. And 10 chapters previous, chapter 4 of the exact same gospel, Jesus refuses to make food. I'm referring to the temptation in the desert. Jesus goes off by himself for a while to fast and pray. And then I've got to get into character here when the devil speaks to him. There we go. Some people have wondered why I own these in the first place. And the devil says, "Hey, Jesus, you look pretty hungry, buddy. If you're the Son of God, you could turn those rocks into bread and eat like a king. What do you say?" And of course, what does Jesus say? Man does not live on bread alone, but only by every word that comes from the mouth of God. Thanks. So again, Jesus creates food. Jesus refuses to create food. What's the difference? The difference is more or less common sense, as a matter of fact. It's a difference between a primary and legitimate need and the exercise of power under the illusion of a legitimate need. At the feeding of the 5,000, Jesus gives the people what they need. They needed food. In the desert, it's not the same. He chooses to go by himself and fast. And if he never had that conversation with the devil, he knew that he would eat again when the time was right because God provides. But because of that conversation with the devil, he would have been creating food for the wrong reason. He would have been displaying his power. He would have been showing off. And that's just not Jesus' style. In the desert, he had something more important to do than get himself food. He had to resist the temptation to use his power for his own benefit, as opposed to the will of God, the Father. That's not so at the feeding of the 5,000. By not giving those people food, he would have been doing absolutely no good at all. He was righteous to give the people what they needed. Food. We're called to make decisions in the same way that Jesus did. That involves providing for ourselves and for the 5,000 among us. And it also means showing resistance for those things that ultimately leave us trapped in the desert.